everyone. So today we will be starting off this new book. This is the fifth book for our Self Study with Me series. This one, its title is called Daily Life in the Indus Valley Civilization by Heinemann InfoSearch. So by Brian Williams. Table of contents. Fine. Who were the Indus Valley people? It's a pretty short read, so I think we'll be done in an hour. About 5,000 years ago, in around 2500 BCE, people built cities beside the Indus River on the Indian subcontinent. The Indus, one known as the King River in ancient Indian literature, rises in the Himalayan mountains and flows 1,800 2,900 kilometers to the Arabian Sea, the longest river of modern Pakistan. Its water are important for irrigation. The Indus provides water for crops and animals as well as routes for trade. The Indus Valley was a good place to build a civilization. Look at this one. This is Kalibangan, Rajasthan. This is Mohenjo-daro. This is Harappa, Dholavira. Lothal is a port. Surkoda, Tada, Arabian Sea, Himalayan mountains. This is the Indus. Different tributaries joining. The map shows the Indus Valley culture region. People settled beside the rivers that flows from the Himalayan mountains south into the Arabian Sea. Rivers and cities. The first civilization grew near great rivers in Sumer, Egypt, China, and the Indus Valley. People built cities and developed writing and arts and craft, trade links, religion, governments in the cities such as Mohenjo-daro. Harappa were among the finest in Asia. There were many Indus cities near the other rivers as far north as Afghanistan and southeast into India. We don't know much about the people who built these cities and whose ancient way of life shaped the culture of modern India and Pakistan. Little remains of Indus cities, but we can see where streets and houses once stood. At Harappa, railroad builders in 1800 took away so many bricks that little was left for archaeologists to study. These are the bricks. Slow progress. Indus Valley cities were flourishing at the same time Stonehenge was being built in Britain. However, ancient Europe had no cities to match those of Africa and Asia. How do we know? In 1830, Charles Mason, a deserter from British Army, was roaming in India when he found brick mounds that looked like old castle. He rediscovered ancient Harappa. Later in 1919, Rakal Das Banerjee, an Indian archaeologist from Mohenjo-daro. R.S. Banerjee. In this picture, seals were used to stamp impressions in clay for record keeping. Hundreds of these seals have been found. How big was the Indus civilization? The Indus civilization was bigger than Sumer or ancient Egypt, within an area of 500,000 square miles, 1.3 million square kilometers. It covered what is now Afghanistan, Pakistan, northwest India. We are not sure how many people lived in the Indus Valley. Estimate range from 1 to 5 million. The biggest cities were Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. Mohenjo-daro was home to 30,000 to 50,000 people, perhaps more. What was Indus life like? Today, visitors to Mohenjo-daro swelter in 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 38 degrees Celsius, desert heat. 5,000 years ago, the Indus Valley was probably greener, with more trees and animals such as elephants, rhinoceros, antelopes, water buffalo, and tiger. Farmers grew crops using water from the rivers in order to feed workers living in the cities. Indus cities had a citadel, like a castle, on a dirt mound. At Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, citadels overlooked the lower town. Cities were remarkably well planned. with streets, brick houses, and excellent sanitation. Skilled workers made goods that were traded into Central Asia, Mesopotamia, and along the shores of Arabian Sea. And the skills and technology involved writing, math, sculpture, sails, bricks, boats, carts, pottery, jewelry, metal tools. Life in the Indus city seems to have been prosperous and peaceful from about 2500 to 1700 BCE. What were Indus cities like? Archaeological finds suggest that people lived west of Indus River by about 8000 BCE. They were herders and farmers moving from place to place, later began to settle in village in Indus Valley. The river floods like those of the Nile River in Egypt provided rich soils for crop. Villages grew into towns in the river delta, and later, from around 2600 BCE, the Indus people started to build walled cities. Why city life was good? Living in a city had advantages. A city was a center for government and trade where people could develop special skills in making pottery and metal tools. City dwellers felt safe living inside bricks and earth walls with watchtowers and gates to protect them from enemies or wild animals. At the city gates, officials could check traders and farmers going in and out of the city, a sign of a settled, organized way of living. Life ticking through the layers. Some intercity walls are 23 feet or 7 meter thick and have stood for over 4,000 years. However, mud brick houses crumbled over time, and as people built new on the top of old, after hundreds of years, a new house might be 15 feet meters above old house ruins underneath. This is Indus city of Mohenjo-daro today. The name means Mound of Dead in the Sindhi language, but these streets once bustled with life. City planning. The Indus city shared same features. Many buildings were raised on a dirt mound, a platform of mud brick, which kept them dry if the river flooded. Straight roads ran north, south, east, west, dividing the city into blocks. The main streets was almost 33 feet, 10 meters wide, enough for two carts to pass. Side streets were only 3.3 feet, 1 meter across, with the house wall on either side. On the street was shaded from the sun. Narrow alleys led to the front doors of the family houses. Streets like this one in Harappa once were filled with people and carts. Upper Town. The upper town had the highest mountain citadel, which was perhaps where the rulers lived. Here there were public buildings, maybe for city government and biggest houses. Most homes had a bath area, and brick drains carried water and waste into sewers laid along the street. There were private and public wells for water. Mohenjo-daro had as many as 3,000 houses, and 1 in 3 homes in the city had its own well. Good sanitation was important. Lower Town. Poor people, including most city workers, lived and worked in the largest Lower Town district. Here there were more mounds with buildings on the top, as well as network of busy street market workshops and rows of small houses. How do we know? Excavation of the port city of Lothal was Begu in 1955 by Archaeological Survey of India. Team led by S.R. Rao found a warehouse, factories that made beads, a large brick-lined water tank, and also private bath with paved pathways, probably for the rich citizen. Port city of Lothal began in 1955. S.R. Rao. उसके पहले बैनर्जी था. The artist picture shows what an Indus probably looked like. An empire of cities. The Indus Valley was as big as empire, with more than 1400 towns and cities besides Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, including Lothal, Dholavira, Kalibangan, Surkotada. These were not the names used by Indus people. We may never know the original Indus place names. Water for trade and life. Lothal is now over 10 miles, 16 kilometers from the sea, but at the time of Indus Valley civilization, it might have been a busy port. Archaeologists have found a large brick-lined water tank at Lothal that people have suggested was either a dock, a reservoir, or ritual water tank. The picture shows what port of Lothal may look like, with ships being loaded and unloaded. Water was precious, and Indus people were skilled at using and conserving water. The city had reservoirs and deep wells. The city of Dholavira was in a very dry region, and its people cut more than 15 water tanks out of rock to store water brought it channel from rivers. Mohenjo-daro, the largest in the city, had 700 wells, and some were 66 feet, 20 meters deep. How do we know? Archaeologists don't always agree on finds. Some think the 700-foot, 213-meter brick basin at Lothal was a dockyard, possibly a repair dock for ships. Others believed it was a reservoir for drinking water. Mohenjo-daro. The Great Bath at Mohenjo-daro was probably used for ritual bathing. Mohenjo-daro was slightly larger than the northern city of Harappa, and much more of original city has survived. Each of Mohenjo-daro's 12 city blocks covers an area of about 90 by 60 feet, 300 by 200 meters. Its imposing citadel stood on a mound about 40 feet, 12 meters high, and inside were a large residence, possibly a ruler's home, a food store, a granary, and a meeting hall for religious ceremony. The city has a great bath that is 39 feet, 12 meters long, and 23 feet, 7 meters wide, and once had water 8 feet, 2.4 meters deep. The bath was lined with layers of bricks, mortars, and bitumen tar. It had wooden steps for people to enter the water, which came in from a well and flowed out through a drain. Harappa. Harappa may have been another Indus capital. The city also had a citadel performed with towers and terraces, as well as main gate and wall 29 feet 9 meters thick. Its large granary or grain store workshop and furnaces for metal working show that it was a busy commercial center. How do we know? Many burials have been found at Indus City. In the 1920s, archaeologists found 39 skeletons at Mohenjo-daro. 2 skeletons had cut marks as if made by sword or spear. Were these the remains of people killed in battle? However, medical evidence showed neither wound was fatal. If these were victims of disease, why were the people not buried in the city graveyard? We may never know the answer to the particular mystery. Who ruled the Indus people? The Indus Valley was like an empire, but without the emperor. As far as we know, ancient cities usually had strong kings or priests in charge, yet we have little evidence to show who ruled the Indus people. Indus writings might give clues, but no one has been able to decipher it. Possibly the Indus Valley had a priest king like the Pharaoh in Egypt. Maybe there were twin capital cities, Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. Perhaps each city had its own government like city-state of ancient Greece organization. A city of 50,000 people needs city government. All Indus cities were laid out in much the same way, with streets, markets, workshops, public areas, private homes. This required organization. Trade was also organized. Traders used standard weights to weigh goods. Builders used same size bricks and measuring rods. Potters crafted pots in the Indus style. So, who made the rules? No one knows if Indus people voted for the city councils or just did what their rulers told them. Did Indus cities have soldiers? Strong walls usually mean defense to keep out enemies. Like a medieval castle, an Indus city had towers and gateways, probably with guards to check travelers who tried to pass through. Indus weapons included stone clubs, copper or bronze swords, and knives and bows and arrows. However, with no history, text, or pictures, we don't know for sure if Indus Valley soldiers went to war. The Indus people made weapons like these from copper and bronze. Some people kept weapons at home, maybe to guard their jewelry and gold. Were there Indus gods? The Indus people do not appear to have built huge temples, or if they did, none has survived. Yet there is evidence of religious belief, such as the Great Bath at Mohenjo-daro, which was possibly used for ritual bathing. See page 15. There were stone carvings, many small terracotta figures, and images on the seal that all appear to show God. We have seen the people buried their dead with some of the dead persons' most treasured possessions, such as pottery and jewelry, that suggest the belief in life after death. This stone lamp from Mohenjo-daro has a woman's head. Perhaps it shows Mother Goddess. It is likely that Indus religion had many gods. People made clay images of male and female gods and also of other human like deities, animal deities. They may even have kept small god statues at home. Many homes contain figures of female mother goddess, the people or fig tree seen in many Indus seals is today a sacred tree for many people in South Asia, suggesting this belief may have passed down through the generation. The Priest King, a small stone statue found at Mohenjo-daro in 1927, shows a man wearing a robe with three-leaf pattern. He has a beard, headband, and a cloak, and he's come to be known as the Priest King. Perhaps the cities of the Indus Valley were ruled by priests, but we don't know for sure. The Priest King statue is only 7 inches 18 centimeters high. It's one of the images of an Indus people to have survived. What were Indus houses like? An Indus Valley house had brick walls. It had a flat roof of wooden beams covered with reeds and clay. Some houses had 2 stories with brick stairs between the levels. Many families lived in 2-room houses, but larger houses had several rooms around a courtyard, while the very rich had masons with 30 or more rooms. Mud bricks crumble, especially after heavy rain or floods, so householders were kept busy with repairs, and brickmakers were never short of work. The cutaway drawing shows the structure of an Indus city house, which was made from timber and mud brick. Behind mud walls. High walls gave privacy. The Indus city houses had a street door but no windows opening to the street. Most houses had small bathrooms with brick floors, drains, and toilets that emptied through clay pipes into street sewers. The street sewers were covered with brick slabs and drained into the soak pits, which someone had to clean. Not the nicest job in the Indus city. House walls were plastered with mud, but it's not clear if there were any wall decorations such as painting. We can tell from the small clay model houses put in the graves that windows probably had shutter with grills to let in cooling air. Indus brickmakers. Indus brickmaker pressed soft mud into wooden molds and turned out the brick to dry in the hot sun. For harder bricks, they burnt fired bricks in a wooden burning kiln. All Indus Valley bricks were made to a standard size about 2.75 times 5.9 inches times by 11.8 inches, or 7 centimeter times 15 centimeter times 30 centimeter. The ratio height, width, and length has always been the same, 1:2:4. How did the Indus Valley people live at homes? Most workers lived in small row houses with 2 rooms. Thick bricks walls kept houses cool. Niches, hollows, and outside walls could have been used for oil lamps at night or for statues of gods placed there to watch over the homes. People still go to the local well to fetch water and meet friends. How do we know? A house excavated at Lothville had a veranda or open porch where people could sit and relax in the cool of the evening. There were 3 rooms along the veranda. Perhaps the particular house had been a trader's hotel. Home comforts. Rooms had stone or dirt floor, and there were hearths for cooking, although people could also have cooked food on the roof. Indus furniture hasn't survived, but we can guess that the people had simple wooden stools and tables, shelves and chests. Beds were probably made of wood or brick and softened with straw, mattress, animal skins, wool blankets, and for the rich, cotton textiles for cooking and storing food. People use pottery, jars, dishes, as well as bowls and pans made from copper or bronze. Water. In the bathroom, people bathed by pouring water over their bodies from the large jars. Many homes had their own wells, but poor people carried water in jars from communal wells. Pieces of broken clay cups found around public wells suggest people gathered to talk and have a drink while fetching water for their families. Growing food. In this, people ate mostly vegetables and fruits, with some fish and a little meat. Plant remains such as seeds show us what crops were grown. Bones are evidence of domestic animals, which included humped cattle, still common in India, sheep and goats. There were chickens, too domesticated, from wild jungle fowl. Water buffalo were either domesticated or hunted in the wild. Hunters brought in forest game such as antelope, while rivers, canals, and ocean provided fish, shellfish, and turtle. Asian farmers harvest millet, a cereal crop we know was grown by farmers in the Indus civilization. The reverses seasonal floods and good irrigation methods meant good farm, crop and plenty of food meant for the cities. The main crops were wheat and barley, wild rice, field pea, lentils, grapes, dates, melons, mustard, seeds and sesame were also grown. Clothes. Indus workers were probably the first in the world to make cotton textile for the India is still famous. Indus cotton plants didn't produce much cotton, so cotton cloth would have been an expensive luxury. From studying Indus figurines, small statues, and scraps of preserved cloth, we can guess that people wore few clothes. Women maybe wore a long dress, while men wore linen cloth or kilt. Rich people, the priest, king, for instance, wore robes and cloaks dyed in bright colors. Rich citizens would have worn lots of jewelry and had fancy hairstyles too. How do we know? Bones found in the ancient garbage dumps tell us what meat Indus people ate. They liked beef, lamb, and goat. They hunted antelope and wild pigs too. Bone remains also show they owned cats and dogs and had donkeys and camels, but horses were very rare. Medical tests on skeletons' teeth suggest men ate better than women. Indus women's teeth show evidence of disease linked to malnutrition. What kind of jobs did people do in the Indus Valley civilization? There were many jobs in the Indus Valley. Living in the cities, more people did specialized jobs and became experts at the skill or craft. City workers. City workers included builders, crafts worker, officials whose job it was to see that traders stuck to the rules and garbage cleaners who kept drains and well clean. Most of these city workers were probably men. Family life. Farming and food gathering were essential tasks for the members of families in the Indus Valley. Children started work young. We don't really know what Indus Valley schools were like. However, we can assume that most children were educated as scribes, had to have learned to write, and traders and builders needed to know basic math. Most children probably followed their parents into the family trade. The bead maker. Indus bead maker made red beads by heating carnelian stones in an oven. The fierce heat turned the brown stones red. After it had cooled, the bead maker chipped the stone to desired shape. He or she often painted designs on the beads using a mixture made from the kappa tree ratios and salts and turned white when the bead was heated. Sumerian. Jewelry making. Jewelry making was a highly valued skill. Both men and women wore types of jewelry, including bracelets, necklaces, rings, earrings, studs, bangles, pendants, brooches. The rich wore gold and silver, while terracotta, clay, shell, or bone made cheaper items. These were small bead factories like the one discovered at Lothal, where workers heated different materials in furnace to make a range of colorful beads. This Indus people loved jewelry. The bead necklace was made by an Indus crafts worker about 4000 years ago. Pottery. Indus pottery was made in huge amount, almost as mass production lines. Most pots were for everyday use, ranging from large storage jars to small dishes and bowls to plain terracotta, but some were decorated in the black or the red or cream or black and red. The special pots were painted with leaves, flowers, birds, fish scale pattern. One common pot shape is flat dish on an offering stand, perhaps for religious use. Clay pots were made on wooden potter's wheels and fired in wood burning kilns. Cheap pots could be dried in the sun to save wood. Seals. The Indus Valley people are famous for their seals. Hundreds of these pieces have um, have been found. They look like tags, no more than 1 inch, 2.5 centimeters long. Many were made of statite, a soft stone, or faience, a ceramic. Though a few were made from copper or silver metal, seals have carved images of animals, plants, of human figures. For example, one seal shows a woman fighting animals, another shows a horned hunter attacking a tiger. The seals shows a man with two tigers. The seals may have been worn as good luck charms or used as labels for traded goods. Other trades: carpenter made wooden furniture and handles for tools such as hoes and axes. Metal workers made tools from copper and bronze, arrowheads, knives, razors, saws, fish hooks, chisels, and needles. They were made mirrors too. The cast statue is molten metal using the lost wax process. Um, Poo pots. An Indus potter might be collecting goat dung poop. This wasn't to use as manure in his garden but to mix it with clay. Goat dung was used to give pots a dark tint. This clay model is a bullock cart. Cart like these are still used in India and Pakistan. Trade and transportation. Trade was essential in Indus cities. Traders brought in raw materials that city workers needed. City workers used these materials to make pots, beads, tools, jewelry, and cotton cloth. Sourcing raw material often meant a long journey. Minerals came from Iran and Afghanistan, lead and copper from India. Cedar tree wood was floated down the river from Kashmir and Himalayan mountains. Jade came from the mountains from China. Jade. Traders trade by barter. The Indus people didn't use money, instead, they traded by barter. The buyers and sellers made a deal and exchanged goods. They weighted items in balance scales using stone cubes as weights. Travel. Archaeologists have found clay models of Indus carts. These wooden carts would have been loaded with grains, vegetables, and fruits, pulled by bullocks. Young bulls, roads were muddy when it rained, dusty when dry, usually rough to pass. For heavy loads, boats were fastest means of transportation. Going down river was easiest, following the flow of the river to the ocean. Checking by weights. For weighing on scales, traders used a weigh cube of rock called a grey chert. The smallest cube weighted less than 0.03 ounce 1 gram. The weighted system was complex, apparently based on both and doubling 1 to 48 and decimals point, point 5, point 1, point 2, point 5, point 1, 2. The Indus measuring system included a measure of about 13.2 inches, 33 centimeters, similar to 1 4 to 12 inches. A usual measuring tool was metal rod marked of in division of 0.3 inches, 7 millimeters. The Indus people were obviously good at math to set up balance scales with Indus stone weights. What did Indus trade, buy, and sell? Even without money, trade was very important in Indus Valley civilization. Traders were eager to sell goods made in the cities. They were often away from home for weeks or months, heading off to find raw material to make deals and to find new markets for many items that Indus people made with such skill. Important trade items included pottery, semi-precious stones such as turquoise, lapis lazuli, silver, gold, lead, tin, flint for making stones, ivory, combs, and pearls. Lapis lazuli, a beautiful blue gemstone, was traded from mountains in Afghanistan. Traders crossed mountains and forests. They followed rivers, walking along the river bank. They often traveled in a group or caravans with a string of camels or donkey to carry the heavy loads. It was safer to travel in this way when passing through jungles where tigers roamed or in mountains where bandits lurked. The travelers set off early in the morning before it got too hot, rested during the noon heat that crammed at night. Sometimes they used one of the hotels along the trade routes. Indus traders used to pack animals such as camels for long overland journey. New contacts. Traders made long journeys from Indus Valley to foreign lands, traveling by sea. These trade links extended as far as west as Mesopotamia, modern Iraq. Through these contacts, other civilizations learned of wealth and skill of Indus culture. Fish dish. Archaeologists found hundreds of fish skulls in one Indus garbage dump. Perhaps it was a factory where fish were dried or salted to preserve them. Dried fish would have been useful packed lunch for traveling traders. This seal shows a one-horned bull which people once thought might be a unicorn. You can see some Indus writing above the bull. Twin cities. Mesopotamia, the land between two rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates, was rich and powerful and ready to trade. Traders from Mesopotamia came to live in Indus cities, and Indus merchants went to live in Mesopotamia. The puzzle of Indus writing. Indus traders carried valuable cargoes such as cotton and beads to exchange for bitumen, tar in Mesopotamia, which had a lot of oil. They took seals. They took seals and perhaps clay tablets with written messages from their rulers. Unfortunately, although many seals have been found, no one has been able to make sense of writing. Indus people wrote by making marks and pictures, and each picture symbol probably represent a word, a part of a word. Boats like this carried traders on rivers and oceans. They sailed along the shores of Arabian Sea, keeping sight of land if they could until they reached port. The first line of text was written from right to left and the second line from left to right, so on. There were at least 400 characters, letters, signs, and numbers, but longest text found has only 26. There are no long books. Indus writing is an unreadable puzzle for now, but if we were ever unravel the code find more writing, we'll discover a lot about these amazing people. The people from Meluha, a king of the Akkad Empire who ruled Sumer, Mesopotamia, now Iraq, had his scribes keep track of who came in his kingdom. We can read Sumerian writing, so we have learned that traders came from Akkad, from Meluha, Indus Valley. Bits of Indus pottery found on beaches in the Persian Gulf tell us Indus traders left them, probably stopping off when sailing went to Mesopotamia. What did Indus Valley people do for fun? Many children worked soon as they were big enough to help on farms and workshops. However, there was time for games and toys. Small figures, models, toys made from baked clay and metals have been found, though they could also bear some religious significance. There were wheeled carts, some with a roof to keep people cool, or dry when it rained. Model cows wiggle their heads when string is pulled, toy monkeys slide down ropes, and there are toy squirrels and other animals. These clay models of a lion and horse from Mohenjo-daro are now in a museum in India. Game sports. Indus people played board games with dice and counters. They had pets, including cats and dogs, which left paw prints in wet mud bricks. The paw prints was preserved, but the mud hardened. Archaeologists have even discovered a preserved monkey paw print. The ancient Indus board game from Harappa Museum in Pakistan. Living close to water, people must have enjoyed boating, fishing, and even swimming. Though they had to watch out for crocodiles and snakes, they could explore the forest or go hunting in marshes with bows and arrows and slingshots. Stone throwers roast duck and fish netted in the river made a tasty barbecue. Double six winds. At Harappa, archaeologists found dice made from a cube of sandstone and terracotta. They would well be the oldest dice in the world, and but practically same as dice today, with six sides and spots for 1 to 6. Art and social life. There is not a lot of Indus art left apart from pictures and seals, decorated pottery, and small clay figures. Any big carved statues or wall art as seen in later Indian architecture have long ago been destroyed. All that survives are small pieces of art like the bronze figure of a girl who looks like as if she's dancing. The figure of an Indian Indus woman was found at Mohenjo-daro. She is a temple priestess or perhaps a slave. Party time. Dancing girls may have entertained at feast or city festivals from the scraps of evidence from pottery and sculpture. We see that rich women wore patterned cloth robes and expensive jewelry and had elegant hairstyles. We can imagine them visiting friends' houses to celebrate a wedding or new baby. Dancing to the music of pipes, drums, and stringed instruments is also a big part of the traditional culture of South and Central Asia. Good life. Indus people worked hard and most had little spare time, yet the Indus Valley seems to have enjoyed a settled period of hundreds of years, so its people were left at peace to enjoy their street markets and private bathrooms. Most people could probably relax in evening after work and feel that the life was the whole pretty good. Lost sculpture. Bronze and copper objects were cast using lost wax process. A wax model was made and covered with clay to make a mold. When the clay was hard, melted metal was poured into the mold. The hot metal melted the wax, which was then drained off. The metal cooled and hardened. When the clay mold was broken off, metal castings of the original model was revealed. It terracotta models like this were made with children's toys. What happened to the Indus people? The Indus people changed little in 800 years, then between 1800 and 1500 BC. In percentage of time by 1300 BC, it had ended. Why no one is sure. There's no evidence of war. So what happened? Wouldn't you side by side in modern India and Pakistan? Possible reasons. The decline of the Indus may have been due to several reasons. Maybe population just got big and food got scarce and people began to starve. This would suggest that if some rivers altered course or dried up, cities were left without water and people without enough food. Maybe terrible floods or even an earthquake brought a disaster. Perhaps an epidemic of disease killed thousands of people, yet survivors had to move on and the possibilities they had immediate capacity. People of the fig tree was a sacred tree in the Indus Valley and is held sacred by people across South Asia. By 1500 BC, the Indus Valley civilization was crumbling. Most people lived in villages and traders no longer sailed to Mesopotamia and Netherlands. In time, even brick walls and buildings were no more as new civilization came and went during the long history of Indus and Pakistan. Yet much of Indus tradition lived on the culture, art and religion of the subcontinent. Modern cities bustle with traffic and high-tech commerce, and trade remains at the heart of South Asian life. However, in a world of cars and computers, you can still see bullock carts and camels plodding down dusty roads just as they did in 5,000 years ago. Day in life of an Indus boy. His name is Arshad, and I lived in one of the city's best brick makers, and he's gone up to the crane bar to do some repairs. Sisters are washing clothes on the riverbank. The bath work and I might get into mischief. I had a slice of juicy melon and a chunk of mom's bread, freshly baked. Friends and I are going to the market and we'll stop at the well for drink. We like to see the traders and hunters too. Last week we saw a man with a tiger cub and dancing monkey. Mom has given me one of the little seed necklaces she makes. You can trade for some lunch, maybe some saltfish or a dish of turtle stew. We've come down to the river, but no one where the women are washing potato samples, something including all sacks, where the officials check the seals. My uncle is a seal maker. It's really impressive the way he carves those pictures and wiggly writings. I'm hoping he will teach me. Yesterday I saw crocodiles, albeit better watch out near the water. Cousins from the long country have come to the city to trade wool and sheep meat. They are going to eat supper with us and we'll share news. It's a long walk home to the village. I'm glad our house is in the town. It's so hot tonight. I think I'll sleep on the flat roof and see how many stars I can count. 9,000. The first farmers plant crops and raise domestic animals, living in one place rather than wandering nomads. Mean people build permanent settlement. The first cities are built, including Jericho and Ketel Hayuk in the east. Ketel Hayuk. Civilization. I'm beginning in Sumer, Mesopotamia, and Egypt, where people to cities. People settled in Indus Valley and started begin to make copper tools and clay pots. 300. Mohenjo-daro is a village, but is built to grow into a city. The earliest writing dates back from the time made by drawing pictures and marks on the clay. Including this valley, have invented wheels. In Britain, people began Stonehenge. Pyramids. Junodaro, Dolavira, the cities of brick walls, baths, food stores, water supplies, training grounds. Sargon of Akkad, the king of the Sumer. Mm. Mm. Are we done here?